Hello and welcome to another SciFirst Movie Talk episode. So, this episode is going to be a little bit different from my kind of normal reviews. It's not a review of sorts, but more of a general introduction to the movie series that is Star Trek. So, what started out in 1966 has kind of now developed into one of the world's largest franchises, which at the time of this episode has spawned 9 TV series and 13 feature films, making up an enormous shared universe, kind of spanning galaxies and time itself. Now, I've seen quite a few of the series, the original one, the animated series, The Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and Enterprise. But I must admit, I do have some catching up to do with regards to Discovery and most certainly Picard, which looks absolutely amazing. So I've still yet to watch those. But anywho, ever since I can actually remember, I have had a love for Star Trek. And the films, they hold a special place in my heart, as it was these that kind of first introduced me to the franchise overall, all those many years ago. With all the memories of many a night, many a magical night, kind of sat in front of the TV, as it was back then, with my dad, watching the latest Star Trek release, or the repeats at Christmas time. So, I'm not what you would call probably a Trekkie, by any stretch of the imagination, and forgive me, I do not mean that in a derogatory way at all. I like the films as kind of part of a more general subject, as you can probably see. And I couldn't probably go into too much detail about the specifics of the franchise, whereas, of course, some people, in fact, quite a lot of people, live for Star Trek. It's simply got an enormous and devoted fan base. I know, how much I know. I have nothing but admiration for people who are devoted to what they like, and absolute kudos to those who love to kind of cosplay. I've seen some absolutely incredible costumes and characters. It's not something I could do, not something I would be confident in doing at all. Although, secretly, I probably think I'd love it if I tried, I'm sure. But anyway. And as for being able to speak things like Klingon and things, well, I can hardly speak English at the best of times. But I do think there is something absolutely amazing about a series. No, in fact, a universe that can actually capture the hearts and minds of so many people. I just didn't want to give the wrong impression that I'm coming from a position of somebody who understands Star Trek in depth. I simply like the world in which it exists and appreciate the kind of intricate strands that are weaved between its many shows and movies. So, that's the blurb in a way. So what's this episode all about? Well, or what is it all about? Well, I have recently just upgraded all of my Star Trek films to Blu-ray. And so what I thought I would do as part of the SciFirst Movie Talk channel is one by one have like a Star Trek Blu-ray season. And use that as a benchmark to review and talk about each of the Star Trek movies in turn, right from the very first one, Star Trek the Motion Picture, right through to the most recent movie, that the Star Trek Beyond. So this episode kind of, therefore serves to act as my intro to my thoughts on Star Trek in general, and act as a title episode for my Star Trek movie review playlist for the episodes, which I will put together as part of the series. So, depending on, of course, when you watch this episode, if you rise it up after the fact, this will kind of depend on which movies I've seen and reviewed. The plan is to make sure that the next series of reviews over the next 3 weeks or so, well, kind of starting from Monday the 4th of May to kind of give everybody a chance to view this intro episode, are going to be reviews for the Star Trek movies until I've got to the final one. So it will probably take about 2 or 3 weeks if I do between like 3 and 4 a week or something like that. So, therefore, of course, the full list of Star Trek movies I'll be watching in order of release as part of this series, and not, of course, counting any which may be added at a later date if you're watching this episode sometime in the far-flung future, are basically, so we've got the 1979 Star Trek The Motion Picture, we've got 1982's Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan, 1984's Star Trek III The Search for Spock, 1986 Yep, the 1986 movie Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, that's right. 1989's Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier. And then we've got 1991's Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. Then, I believe 1990, as it goes on, because 13 of them altogether. 1994's Star Trek Generations. We move into the Next Generations cast there. 1996, Star Trek First Contact. Then we've got 1998, Star Trek Insurrection. 2002, Star Trek Nemesis, which closes off the journey for the Star Trek Next Generation crew. And then we come to the more three recent films. The 2009, simply entitled Star Trek. 2013, Star Trek Into Darkness. And finally, where we will end this particular kind of series that we're running, 2016's Star Trek Beyond. So, I have actually seen all of them before, but that means I know I'm in for some good watching, and I am quite excited to be doing this. It's one of my biggest projects on the channel so far. A couple of them I haven't actually seen for quite some time, so yeah, definitely excited to be doing this. The reason I think I like Star Trek so much, as it's due to the fact of the shared universe, I think, in which it resides. It's just so expansive. For those of you that have watched some of my earlier kind of intro videos and certainly some of my kind of regular updates, you will know that I absolutely love kind of like story arcs, plots, characters and series which expand into multiple films and develop their own shared universe, if you like. And Star Trek, it fits the bill perfectly. It has to be one of the very first, I think, to have actually done this, and is, I would edge a bet, one of the biggest. You know, I've loved Star Trek ever since I was young, ever since I was a young kid, like I said, and the movies are some of the very first films that my dad ever kind of introduced me to. To be fair, I kind of did grow up with the movies of the original series cast, and my dad, well, he loves Captain Kirk. He hasn't seen any of the movies starring the Next Generation cast, as far as I'm aware, or any of the TV series. And literally, no matter what I try and convince him, otherwise, he's basically steadfast. There's no budging him. So it was up to me to start watching the Next Generation and the Next Generation films, and of course, the other series that followed. And I am absolutely so glad that I did. I have never looked back. I mean, although I was apprehensive kind of when I started watching them about their direction, when I went to see them, I have actually thoroughly enjoyed the three newer films from what's now kind of been known as the Kelvin timeline, basically due to events that transpired at the beginning of the first Star Trek movie in that series, so 2009 Star Trek, kind of bringing together the team that was in the original series. You got Kirk, Bones, Spock, Uhura, Chekhov, Scotty, Sulu, etc., but they're all played by different actors, kind of charting the origins prior to their 5-year mission as depicted in the TV series. Unfortunately, I mean, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, from a film perspective, this is SciFirst MovieTalk. I love the TV series too, but while the TV shows actually look to be going from strength to strength with the likes of Discovery and Picard, the future for the movies in the Star Trek universe, it basically, unfortunately, looks more than uncertain at the time of kind of creating this episode. I think it's an absolute real travesty that it would appear that there isn't going to be another sequel to those films in the Kelvin timeline. I just really kind of got into getting into the characters' development and the stories and things. But, you know, for me, you know, Star Trek has got that much of a varied and expansive universe that surely there's got to be a film out there somewhere. Perhaps even to take it in a different direction with a whole new crew and starship. Hey, I don't mind. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. You know, I'd probably best crack on to kind of get geared up to start watching Star Trek movies next week. That's where I need to be. I've got a couple more reviews to do in the middle, but apart from that, it's going to be Star Trek all the way from the 5th of May. But otherwise, many thanks for watching. If you have liked this kind of discussion and my reviews, please leave a like. Please do think about subscribing to SciFirst MovieTalk, especially if you want to keep up to date with the reviews as they happen. certainly as soon as they're released kind of over the coming weeks. I may not have time to put them all on the Facebook pages and things like that. I would love to hear from you if you've got anything other movie related, and definitely you've got any of the suggestions that you want me to do in upcoming SciFirst Movie Talk episodes. But otherwise, yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy watching my upcoming Star Trek movie reviews. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.